Okay, so next uses of exploratory research, we already know that where exploratory research is used, right? Can anybody answer where we use exploratory research?
Where the uncertainty is more.
When do we use exploratory research? So these were the methods of exploratory research that.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of identify alternate course of action with regard to this?
That's what, if you remember, if you recall problem audit, in the problem audit, the market researcher asked the manager about McDonald's case. If you recall that, what are the, when the situation was discussed that Wendy's and other uh, competitors, they were introducing new products, new burgers, sandwiches, and they were doing aggressive promotions, and at the same point of time McDonald's promotions were not doing that well. So the researcher asked, how have you, if you have to take immediate action, what are the alternative courses of action with you? These are those alternative courses of action. I should ask you what is this. You should not ask me because I have already discussed this. So methods of exploratory research, there are interviews, focus groups, observation, secondary data. All this is method of exploratory research. Descriptive uses, we know, I already told you, get in the descriptive research, we describe the market characteristics in terms of their demographics, psychographics, what they think about their brands, how they feel about their brand, and then we try to see the correlation, or we do the statistical test to test the hypothesis. Sometime in the descriptive research you will confirm the problem and solve the problem. At other times you might also do causal research, and there will be times when you can straight away jump to causal research, as I gave the example of price elasticity of demand. Methods of descriptive research, mainly surveys. In descriptive research, mainly surveys. What is a survey? A questionnaire based form, right? That is, we say survey. In descriptive research also we can use secondary data. There is panels, there is observation. We will discuss this methods of descriptive research as we move on. Now descriptive research design is further broken down into single cross-sectional, multiple cross-sectional, cohort analysis, longitudinal design, and this we will discuss right now. So descriptive research design, we know now what is descriptive research design, right? So now moving further, in descriptive there is, if we go to this particular slide, the descriptive research design is broken down into cross-sectional design and longitudinal design. Cross-sectional is further broken down into single cross-sectional, multiple cross-sectional. Descriptive research, most popular method of descriptive research is survey method using the questionnaire. But it is very difficult to make a good questionnaire, and we will do that in the classes to come. Now cross-sectional design, what is a cross-sectional design? In descriptive research, there is single cross-sectional. In cross-sectional, there is single cross-sectional, multiple cross-sectional. Cross-sectional design, single cross-sectional design is when we collect data from the sample only once. So as written, in single cross-sectional designs, there is only one sample of respondents and information is obtained from the sample only once. So there is cross-sectional, when we say, it is assumed that we are talking about single cross-sectional. Single cross-sectional design is when we collect the data from the sample only once. That is cross-sectional data. Multiple cross-sectional design is when we collect data in cross-sectional, which is, when we say cross-sectional, common understanding, it's single cross-section we are talking about. We collect the data from the sample only once. In multiple cross-sectional design, we also collect the data from the sample only once, but as written, there are two or more samples of respondents, and information from each sample is obtained only once. Which means in multiple cross-sectional, we have the same survey, but we are collecting data from two different samples at two different points of time. Which means from each sample, we are collecting data only once. Have you understood the difference between single cross-section and multiple cross-section? In single cross-section, you are collecting data from the sample only once. Let's say I collect the data about, I give a survey form, collect the data about the feedback for this class today. After 1 year, I again float the form for your juniors. That is multiple cross-sectional design. Why? The same questionnaire, samples are given the questionnaire only once, but the data is collected twice. Data is collected multiple times from two different samples at two different points of time. That becomes multiple cross-sectional design. There are two or more samples of respondents, and information from each sample is obtained only once. That becomes multiple cross-sectional designs. Why we do multiple cross-section? You are not collecting from different groups. You are collecting from a different sample which is representative of the population. That is multiple cross-sectional design. So single and multiple, I hope the difference is clear, right? At the back, we are in multiple, we are using the same form, but the sample changes, because I won't be able, so I won't be able to catch you next year, and it will be very convenient for me to do that same survey with the next your junior batch, because they will be attending my class, so I can give the form and get it. Now I can do that with you, right? Yes? No? Yeah. So that becomes the multiple cross section, the same survey but with multiple different samples who are representative of the population.
So this is the time frame where you have to obtain between the two sections.
See, when we say cross sectional, we say you say I'm going to collect data in a week's time. That is fine, but the time difference should not be so much that some of the characteristic that you are measuring in that survey would change in that particular time frame. So time frame, you have to be a little collect the data in a short period of time, in which there would not be much changes in the characteristic that you are going to collect data on. Now, what is cohort analysis? This is a special type of multiple cross-sectional design. Cohort is a multiple cross-sectional design, right? But this is a special type of multiple cross-sectional design. So cohort, what is this? The meaning of cohort is, cohort represents a group of people who encounter the same event at the same time interval, who have undergone the same event during the same time interval. That becomes a cohort. In this case, let's say, take an example. So there was a particular study done about the cola consumption in US, and the first cohort, so in 1950 the study started, where people from age group of 8 to 19, their cola consumption was noted down. It was 52.9 units, whatever units are there out of 100. So what is a cohort? 8 to 19. What is that event that they shared? what is they encountered the same event during the same time interval. Why I say age cohort? Because they were born 8 to 19, they were born in that same 10-year interval. They encounter the same event during the similar time interval. That is why age cohort 8 to 19. Their cola consumption in 1950 was 52.9. Then after 10 years, when they became 18 to 29, the cola consumption became 62.6. But this is
This is the showing the 1960s.
after 10 years. So what is happening? Please listen. In this example, in the US in 1950, from the age cohort 8 to 19, which means group of all the people who were 8 to 19 years of age in 1950, from that which the population of which was 5 lakh, about 100 people were selected and their cola consumption data was taken, which was 52.9. After 10 years, the same data is taken from a different sample, because you cannot get the same 100 after 10 years. You don't know, many would have passed away, many would have flown to some other country, many would not remember you, many you would not remember. So after 10 years, that cohort all would be then 18 to 29, and the population of them was 5 lakh, right? After 10 years, how difficult it is from that 5 lakh to get to the 100 people? Very difficult, impossible. So after 10 years, from the same age group cohort, which were 8 to 19 in 1950, you selected 100 people randomly and took their cola consumption data. That becomes, it is multiple cross-sectional. You collected the same survey, same data, answer to the same question with 2 different samples at 2 different points of time, but it is a cohort analysis because you are collecting it from the same cohort. The only difference is here it is cohort. You are selecting from 2 different samples, but they belong to the same cohort, and you are collecting it from at multiple points of time. So if you look at this particular example, if you just look at the data for any particular year without looking at any other data point, which means just look at the data for one particular year, 1950, don't look at any other data point. Here, if I hide the data for all other years, just look at 1950 or 1960. If you are the brand manager, you have this data. Look at 1950, what will be your conclusion? As the age increases, cola consumption decreases. So which means you will say, you will either keep your target as young people because their cola consumption is more, you want to sell them more, unless the population of youngster is becoming less day by day. So you would say that as age increases, cola consumption decreases. That will be your conclusion, and your then brand strategy, marketing strategy would be based upon that. Now look at the data from the same cohort. I'm sorry, this cohort, this data, it will become 20 to 29. So this age after 10 years. So if you look at the same cohort, this cohort, 52.9 units it was in 1950. After 10 years, 60.7. After 10 years, further 10 years, 67.7. After further 10 years, 67.8. If you look at any other cohort as well, let's say 30, let's say this one. If you start from this cohort, after 10 years, they will be 20 to 29. This is their reading. Then this is their reading. or sorry, not this one, because they are connected by this line only. Sorry, yeah, these lines are connecting them. So if you look at after 10 years, if you look at trend for any particular year, any particular cohort, what is the answer that you are getting? The consumption is increasing as the age increases. The result is completely different. That is the problem when you collect the single cross-sectional data. You can conclude wrong. If you would have collected only data in one particular year, the conclusion was as age increases, cola consumption decreases, and so would have been your marketing strategy. But when you did the cohort analysis, you are getting to know that age is increasing, the cola consumption is increasing, not decreasing. So which will lead to different sort of decisions. That is why the data of single cross-sectional design we should approach with caution.
So we can at least conclude that at a given point of time, youngsters drink more than the adults.
Yes, that we can conclude. But the idea was here to see whether, see, when you are doing cross-sectional designs, you might face similar situations. So better is to use a cross-sectional or cohort analysis design, descriptive research design, but cross-sectional cohort analysis, multiple cross-sectional, then single cross-section, because the single cross-sectional data can lead to you to the wrong conclusion. Now, what is longitudinal design now? Longitudinal design in when we collect data from the same sample at multiple points of time in the future from the same sample, that becomes the longitudinal design. In the cross-sectional, we are collecting data from the sample only once. The same sample is not repeated. In cohort, if you look at cohort, we had different people, part of the same cohort, different people after certain points of time, if you go back to the cola example. But in longitudinal design, we collect the data from the same set of people at multiple points of time. The respondent will remain same over all the surveys in present and future that I will do. That becomes the longitudinal design. So there are some advantages and disadvantages of cross-sectional versus longitudinal design that you can read on your own. Now there is again one more example of why the longitudinal design are a better form of design than the cross-sectional or even multiple cross-sectional. Now this is an example where a survey was conducted in a particular supermarket, a big supermarket, an audit of brands in a particular product category audit, or the survey was conducted for a particular product category, and there are 3 brands in a big supermarket, brand A, B, C. So at time period 1, at time period 1, 1000 customers who were coming out of the supermarket and who bought that particular product category noted down which brand did they buy. Brand in period 1, brand A was bought by 200 people, brand B was bought by 300, brand C was bought by 500. Right. Now the same survey was done after 3 months, after a quarter, in the same supermarket. In the same supermarket, same survey was done, but we cannot say people who visited when 3 months before, when you were there to collect data, the same people will be shopping, right? There will be different people, but data is, the questionnaire is same. The supermarket is same. You are collecting data from a different sample. So 1000 customers you again surveyed and found that Brand A again 200 people are buying, brand B is 300 people are buying, brand C 500 are buying. So what will be conclusion if you are a brand manager?
Apparently, the proportion is unchanged.
Currently the proportion is unchanged. Our market share position is not changed. Brand A would say it did not decline, it did not increase. Likewise, brand B, brand C. So they would have some courses of action based upon this result, right? Now, suppose that this would have been a longitudinal design, which means these people who were surveyed at time period 1, after 3 months, the same people were surveyed. Let's say we have to make an assumption that after 3 months they all were again buying from the same supermarket. Make that assumption, or we can actually this assumption we will have to make, that if we surveyed the same people, let's say after a quarter, not for a single day, let's say we surveyed them over 2-3 days, and it just happened that all 1000 customers visited that supermarket. So we had now data at time period 1 from that 1000 respondents and data at time period 2 from the same. What are the results? The results are, in time period 1, the total number of people who were buying brand A were how many? 200. Sorry, 200. In time period 1, if you go back, the total number of people buying brand 1, the people who were buying brand 1 were 200 in time period 1. Out of those 200 who were buying brand A in period 1, 50 have gone to brand B and 50 have gone to brand C, which means when you were surveying the same sample after a quarter, you found that from those 200 who bought brand A in time period 1, now only 100 are buying, 50 have switched to brand B and other 50 have switched to brand C. For brand B, total was 300, and out of 300 only 100 are again buying brand B. From 300, 175 have switched to brand C and rest 25 have gone to brand B. Likewise, you can see it for brand C. Out of 500 who bought in period 1, 275 out of total of 500 who brought brand C in time period 1, only 275 now are buying brand C, 150 have gone to brand B, and 75 have gone to brand A. So if you calculate the switching, how much switching has happened? So now brand A in time period 2, 100 are buying, earlier there were 200. Brand B now 100 are buying, earlier there were 300, and brand C now there are 275 are buying, under there were 500. So you will get to know this brand switching behavior. This is 50%. This is how much? 33.3%, and this is some 55, let's say. So which brand has the most problem? Brand B, because only 1/3 of the customers are repeat buyers, everybody else have shifted to other brands. This kind of result you will get only with the longitudinal design. Whereas if you would have done the multiple cross-sectional, what results you were getting? That our market share is same. There is no problem, we need not do anything. But now when you survey the same sample at 2 different points of time, you found that people who are buying in time 1, how many are again buying the same brand in time 2? Therefore, you will get the customer loyalty and brand switching. The brands who are facing more switching are in problem. They would initiate some different actions than what they would have initiated if they would have used multiple cross-sectional design.
So then, but this longitudinal data also shows that the brands are not well differentiated in this case.
No, it just shows you the customer behavior. Why people are repeatedly buying a particular brand. The possible reason could be they like its effect, its outcome of what they are using, and for brand B the switching is very high, which means there is a possibility that its product use is not good. That is why so next, this is a symptom. Then one could have a exploratory research problem and further market research, but the idea is cross sectional can get you to the wrong conclusion. So cross sectional results from cross sectional studies you have to approach with caution. If possible, do the multiple cross sectional or cohort or longitudinal. The big market research companies like Nielsen, they do longitudinal. The sample they recruit for doing longitudinal design, they are called panels. So they collect data over a period of time, multiple times from them, to see their change in buying behavior for various FMCG products. And then sometimes they also reinforce that data with some other data, let's say TV watching data, or maybe web watching data, and they superimpose and see what different type of correlations between what, let's say, the ads are being shown at particular point of time, the ad tracking behavior and the consumption and so on. Many things are possible. So error we will not read as of now. So I hope the little you got little idea about the research design. What is a research design? Different types, and what happens in exploratory, what happens in conclusive, what happens in descriptive, what happens in causal, in descriptive, cross-sectional, single, multiple, cohort, and longitudinal. See, next class we will be doing one hands-on method on secondary data analysis. We will be doing some sort of thematic analysis. We will be also looking at focus groups, in-depth interviews, and projective techniques. So do not miss the next class.